Hi, it's me, Kia, and I'm here with another edition of I Got a Lot of Things to Say. And tonight's guest is actually Ryan Deo, or as you may know him on Threads, as Radio Flyer. He has graciously accepted my invitation so we can talk about men's mental health because June is Men's Mental Health Month. Hi, Ryan.
Hello,
How are you?
how are you? I'm well. I'm going to be hanging out with you on Juneteenth of all
I
days. I mean,
I know.
that's a privilege.
Oh, man, I made a thread like maybe 20 minutes ago, and people have lost
I saw it.
their minds.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, you're not wrong, but with your notifications, because
I my notifications, first of all, they're already in shambles. They're going to be in some more shambles. People don't read. People get hit, and I understand the visceral reaction of seeing something, and you're like, because usually when you feel that way, at least for me, it's because I've done, said, thought something that this person is saying, and it's not right. And I feel the need to defend it in some way.
yeah, yeah, that's
And instead of just, ow, that hurts, and taking a couple of extra seconds to, hey, why was I hit? Why did that hurt? You just start word vomiting, and people don't read. I said, don't word vomit, and someone did, and
yeah, that. I mean, I'm guilty of that too. I mean, it's just that initial, it's that react instead of respond.
yes,
You know, that response. The response is intentional. It's thought through beforehand. Was reaction is just kind of that fight or flight or
yes,
freeze sort of
yes,
reaction.
yes,
So
yes, true. So the reason I wanted to do this, I asked for some people to join me on Threads, and the reason that I wanted to is because, I mean, we've talked about man versus bear. There's a Psychology Today article that was written maybe a year or two ago about how men are lonely. There have been subsequent articles since then about the loneliness epidemic in men. Um, and I really wanted to talk to a man has made, who has either taken charge of their mental health and have found ways and like got the help that they needed, or they're in the process of doing that. Because I think that's really important because we always see whenever there's a post on social media about women and women's mental health and what women need, there tends to be tons of men that come in and go, well, what about men's mental health? But they never talk about men's mental health. It's always in response to women's mental health. I have mental health issues. I've talked about them very freely, both on this podcast and on Threads. And I just wanted to talk to a guy to get their perspective. Well, tell us about your mental health. If you don't mind, what do you have? When did you find out you had it? And what steps did you take?
so I am bipolar 2, which for those that aren't familiar with there are two different types of bipolar. There's bipolar 1, which is the stereotypical and quintessential very high, life of the party, loud, very irresponsible with spending, the standard lows. I'm bipolar 2, so I still have those standard lows, but my manic phase is what's called a hypomania.
Okay.
So it doesn't get that high. What it is just this pervasive aggravation, frustration, irritability. So like there's no fun aspect to it by any means. Nobody's saying Ryan's life at the party. That's not the reality. And then So I've also been diagnosed with complex PTSD from childhood. I grew up in a very abusive home from pretty much
Hmm.
everything. So autism and ADHD as well. So those are kind of my big diagnoses. What therapy, working with my therapist and psychiatrist. Fingers crossed, in 6 weeks I get to restart ADHD meds again because this executive dysfunction is hitting.
I do. I'm I am currently unemployed. I don't have health insurance. I am currently like hoarding my ADHD meds. So the way that my psychiatrist at the time prescribed them, it kind of gave me a surplus. And so I can go through a bottle of pills in maybe like 2 months, depending. So hopefully I have enough to like get me by until I get a job or health insurance or win the lottery or marry a rich man or whatever happens, to get me health insurance.
All that sounds fantastic.
Right. Yes, right. So, and marrying the rich man's like my last resort. I would prefer to just win I
Understandable.
prefer to just win the lotto. So I
Completely get that.
could, so I understand, and I have executive functioning issues too, so I completely get that. When were you first diagnosed with your bipolar disorder?
I was not diagnosed with bipolar until 2000, yeah, 2014. And this is going to sound absolutely horrible. I think it's funny just because I have a very sense of humor, but less than a month after getting the diagnosis and starting the treatment process of being in therapy and getting on medication and diligently taking my ex-wife, who was an American therapist. This is the funny part. She walked out of our marriage with a Dear John note delivered by her dad. So, like I said, macabre sense of humor, but it didn't affect anything as far as my stature went. I continued to do therapy. I continued to pursue my own mental health. Years prior to that, I was diagnosed with CPTSD, and well, I
Yes.
was also diagnosed with ADHD prior to that. After being diagnosed with celiac, you probably saw the film.
Hmm.
Like, my psychiatrist was like, "Okay, no, we're going to stop and set everything back to a baseline. And once your body has reached its new normal and your gut is healed, then we'll start using these different medications and see how you feel because you haven't been able to absorb these meds properly."
Hmm.
So, so yeah, that's kind of the big rocks thing. And, I'm in therapy every other week. I have a great therapist up here. He's fantastic. My psychiatrist is about an hour away. I see her every 2 or 3 months, depending.
Hmm.
And then a web portal for things that need more immediate attention and other things that I do to take care of my mental health. Tape, which I know a lot of people just they think of meditation as sitting in a room and being silent or
Hmm.
doing the way it's portrayed in when you see Buddhist monks and
Right. And it,
which I mean, like you can do that. I mean, that's absolutely a viable way to meditate, but with my brain functioning the way that it does, it gets distracted. So I do directed meditation.
oh,
So it's kind of like an audio book, if you will. Like you have somebody that is leading you through a different meditation that kind of keep you grounded and keep you focused, but at the same actually get into that medication.
Before, did you have any type of resistance to getting diagnosis? What was initially getting diagnosed with bipolar and all of it? Like, I also have CPTSD. I'm also on the spectrum. I also have ADHD. So when you talk about those things, I absolutely understand because it's like, yep, I get it. It's me too. But did you feel any type of resistance or hesitance to get diagnosed or to get treatment of any kind?
I didn't, um, but I also knew the bipolar ran in my family.
Hmm.
My grandmother on my dad's side, she would go to the hospital for trips when I was younger and when my dad was growing up. And I mean, this was late 70s, early 80s. So her therapy was electroshock therapy, as
It
barbaric as
is.
it was then.
Yeah.
Uh, my father, when I was probably around 12 or 13, he was diagnosed with bipolar and he started taking medication and getting the help that he needed. Once he started, that's actually like when my memories started, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like I have completely dissociated flashes of things prior to like 13 or 14, but not a whole lot. I mean, when people get nostalgic about their childhood, I'm like, kind of remember it,
Mm-hmm.
but like nothing really significant. So I personally didn't have hesitance to getting diagnosed. My thing was more in the realm of this is an explanation for why this is this way. This is an explanation for why something that my friend can do so easily
Mm-hmm.
is a struggle for me. Um, an explanation for why I just have this like feeling of like this undercurrent of anger that proceeds for weeks and then kind of just dissipates. So I wasn't resistant to it. There's definitely getting diagnosed and getting treatment later in life definitely comes with its own baggage. Just because you're like, you sit back and you think of all the times that you struggled and you're like, damn, like
I,
there was literally help there.
mm-hmm.
And if somebody would have just said, hey, here's a path that you can take, these are the steps that you can do, and it's not going to fix you because you're not broken,
Mm-hmm.
but it will make things easier for you to navigate this world that's not designed, set up for you to succeed or even thrive.
Right.
So I think I know that there's a lot of my biggest concern, honestly, was with the bipolar medication was would it affect my creativity? Would it make me just completely blank, no rise or fall in emotions, just kind of like an automaton.
Mm-hmm.
And that hasn't been the case, but it seems to be a prevailing notion of sort of pharmaceutical intervention. Yes, there are cases of that, but that's not the norm.
Okay.
That's why you work with your doctors to get those medications at the right dose and the right times and things like
I'm really glad that you brought that up because um, that seems to be a thing that you hear in social media, um, in regular media, celebrities. It's kind of like the bipolar meds kills your creativity. So you don't, people are like, you don't take it. I think Kanye West alluded to that because Kanye West also has bipolar disorder. And he just was like, well, the medication just, zaps my creativity. And I always want to respond to that with there's more than one medication. All the medication isn't made for everyone. You have to advocate for yourself and talk to your doctor and say, hey, this isn't working. And I think one of the reasons we don't do that as much is because we still have this thing about mental health where we don't want to talk about it. It's still kind of taboo. People assume that you're crazy because you have a mental health condition. And I think that, first of all, I think that hinders men specifically. I feel like women have a better time saying, there's something wrong and I need help. Whereas men are like, no, I'm just going to suffer through it. And it's like, you don't have to suffer through it. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with taking medication. And then you have to go through the whole thing of medication. And I had to do that too for ADHD. I'm taking Adderall right now and I don't necessarily like it. Um,
Yeah.
so one of the things that I said I would advocate for myself for is to get on a different medication once I get health insurance because I don't feel like it is helping me in a way that is productive for me, so to speak. And I think that would be the same thing. I mean, that's the same thing for anything for antidepressants. I've been on antidepressants. I've been on and off antidepressants. It's the same thing. It's like just because this doesn't work for you doesn't mean that nothing is going to work. And so, and it bothers me when I hear people like Kanye West kind of, yeah, I have bipolar, I'm not taking medication because A, you're Black, and there's already the stigma in the Black community that's being dissipated. It's slowly working its way out, which I'm very happy about, but we still kind of have it, especially for Black men, which is we don't talk about mental health and we're not getting no medication for that. And then the other part, you're a man and you still have that for men, regardless of race, too. And so, for a man who may feel like, I think there may be something wrong, if you hear Kanye West saying, yeah, I have bipolar, but I'm not taking medication because it's this, that, and the third, you may go, well, I'm not going to get checked out because Kanye West said the medication is crap. Because people can't decipher and comprehend words. I mean, we see that on threads every day.
There's a fundamental reading comprehension issue that needs to be addressed. Yeah, I mean, I think that you're absolutely right. When you have people like Kanye or any other celebrity that comes out and is like, I'm a creative genius and I do all this great stuff, and if I take this medication, it's going to kill it. Well, that's casting a huge shadow of doubt on mental health professionals. And
Hmm.
then you have all the wellness influencers that are
Hmm.
doing their thing. Well, you just need to eat this. You need to exercise this way. You need to sign up for this program that is
Hmm.
$99 a week for 6 months. And no, it's a biological, it's a physiological shift. Like you said, there's a whole slew of medications, especially for things like ADHD. There are, I mean, my psychiatrist and I went through five um, for bipolar 2 and finally settled on one that is within the industry called the thinking man's or thinking person's bipolar medication. It doesn't have it's the stereotypical like bipolar drug that makes you just
Hmm.
is that's lithium. Lithium is fallen out of favor for other pharmaceuticals because lithium causes a whole bunch of other organ damage. Like you have to go get your blood tested to see if your liver's functioning and see how your kidneys are functioning. No, that's unnecessary. There are other medications at this point that don't have those sort of responses. I think ultra, and I'm the Black community, so I'm not going to speak on that. But as far as like Western
Mhm.
culture, as far as U.S. culture in particular, and the white version of people, it's the cliche of like the Don Quayle and Clint Eastwood, rough and tumble individualist. You can just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do it yourself and whatnot. And that doesn't work. It doesn't work for society. It doesn't work for community. It doesn't work for families or individuals. Like it fails on its
Mhm.
face. I've seen slight shifts away from that,
Mhm.
and I'm thankful for that. But I very much grew up in that. My family is from small town Iowa and grew up on a farm. So I understand that whole boy mentality, and it's deadly. There's no other way to say it. It's just it keeps us, it keeps men from saying, "Hey, you know what? I need help with this."
Mhm.
And the way that I explain it to my friends, and the way that I explain it to my wife and I's child, and we're talking about programs for them, is you know, you had to be taught at one point how to put on
Mhm. Mhm.
you had to be taught at one point how to tie your shoes. You had to be taught all these things on how to live a productive life. Your mental health and your emotional health are no different. There are people that are trained to teach you, to equip you with mechanisms and medications to make life easier. I see a lot of men in my circle that are just like, "Well, I'm gonna do it," and it doesn't work. Then there's really no other way to say it other than world help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. That's the stigma that needs to go away. And there's nothing wrong with going to people in your community and saying, "Hey, I'm feeling this sort of way, or I'm thinking this sort of way." And it's it all goes back to that whole difference between masculinity and toxic
Mhm.
masculinity. The first victim of toxic masculinity is really because we were put in this box of, hey, we have to act this way, or our neighbor is going to question how tough we are, how strong we are, whatever the gauge of masculinity is. And then from there, that toxic masculinity nonsense just oozes over the edges of that box and spills all over everything else. And then that starts to, that comes out in child abuse, partner abuse, violence in the community, criminal activity, this whole I'd rather face a lion than a woman in a forest. Like,
And that,
that was the wildest conclusion to the bear versus man
and
conversation. But
I
yeah,
don't understand that at all. So I really don't understand men when they say I would rather be with a lion. Okay, well the lion's gonna kill you. But all right, if that's what you want to do, and I I think for me, and I think the reason why, like you said, toxic masculinity is really hurtful and why we need to dismantle it is because you have men who are holding on to so much. You've been taught as a man that you aren't supposed to have emotions. You're supposed to be stoic. the only emotion that you're really accepted to have as a man is anger, and that's it. I can get angry,
Yeah.
but I can't get anything else. I can't be disappointed. I can't be happy. I can't be sad. I can't be depressed. I can't cry. I can't do any of that. I'm only allowed to be angry. And so when you have a lot of men and a lot of young men who they just lash out in anger because they think that's the only acceptable thing I can do. And I'm not a man. You know, I truly believe that we get siloed into these different, like once we know what our gender is, once we are born and they go, okay, that's a girl and that's a boy, we get siloed. I feel we get siloed in these weird places of thinking where the girls are raised, educated, trained. And when I say raised, educated, and trained, I'm not talking about formal education. I'm talking more about what I call community or societal education. Like the community and the
Mhm.
societal education is like completely different. And so for women, when we go out and we see these men say these things, we're like, where the fuck is that coming from? What? Because we weren't educated in that way, if that makes sense. And so, and I think it's the same for men. So when we say we would rather, if I was out in the woods, I would feel more comfortable with a bear than a man. And I'm one of those people who I've been out in the woods before. I didn't I didn't encounter a bear though, but I've been out in the woods and I'm like, if a bear came, I would be, I mean, everyone would be scared it's a bear. But at some point you'd be like, all right, well, I'm over here and I'm gonna go over there. And the bear's probably like, cool, do you have any Oreos? I mean, you got any food or something you can throw? Because that's really all I'm after is some food and throw the bear some Oreos and go on about your life. But a man is just completely different because you don't know what type of man you're going to get. And men don't seem to understand that, even though you men, and and I, I shouldn't have to preface this with not all men, but,
You don't. You don't. As far as I'm concerned,
but
I'm one of those people that if the shoe fits, I'll put it on. If the shoe doesn't fit, I'm not putting my foot
I'm
in
not
it.
putting my foot in it. You have men, that's not true. We're not all bad people. You can be safe with us, but I'm like, how many times has your buddy made a rape joke and you just sat there and laughed with him? How many times did your buddy tell you something that sounds like he sexually assaulted somebody and you was just like, oh, wow,
Hmm?
that's crazy, yo. That's crazy. And you
Yeah.
never question, challenge anything. And it's like, we're talking about that too. It's not just you know, you would rape us, but you're condoning the person that would. You're friends with the person that would. You're laughing at the rape jokes with the person that would. That's just as harmful. It's not on the same level, but that is still harmful too. And they don't understand it. When you sit there and you're in forums talking about, oh, this is how you can coerce someone to have sex with you. Why are you trying to have sex with someone that doesn't want to have sex with you? Can someone please explain that to me? That is what we're talking about. And men seem to think it is only, well, I would never rape you. Okay, but that joke that your friend said about raping someone, you thought was the funniest shit you've ever heard. So I'm
Well, and this
confused.
goes back to like what I was saying about the whole toxic masculinity thing, because that's the point where you connect over the crass humor, over the inappropriate comments, over the locker room talk, as it's couched in today's politics. You know, no, but that's and you know. I was talking with my therapist in one of our more recent sessions about something that I've been experiencing with this kind of dietary change and how this has completely shifted my biology and how my body is reacting and responding. And said something about feeling anxious and he said something that had never crossed my mind before. He was like, anger is really nothing more than anxiety that has no. And so, you have all these men that are walking around that are expressing all this anger because they've been told that it's socially acceptable for them to express anger, but really it's an undercurrent of anxiety that
Mm.
has all been fed into by this toxic masculinity. Am I manly enough? Am I strong enough? Am I handsome enough? Is my dick big enough? All of these things that
Let's not even get
a man is supposed to be,
right.
these are all like anxiety triggers, but because we're not taught how to handle them and it's not discussed with us growing up, and we're not equipped with that education for our emotions or our thoughts, it all just turns to anxiety. And that anxiety just bubbles up and becomes nothing but anger. And we don't know what to do with it. And so then it goes out into things like driving aggressively, drinking and driving, JT, incredibly violent and aggressive sports. That all sports need to be that way. But
Hmm.
there are definitely times when you see people play sports that they're playing angry. They're
Yeah.
not playing to have fun. They're out there and they're playing angry. You've
Hmm.
seen people at the gym when they're on those racks, they're lifting angry. They're not lifting, their form's messed up, they're whatever. They're distracted by something going on inside,
Hmm.
but they're taking it out on everything, whether it's inanimate or sentient around them. I think that anxiety then also feeds that. Well, if I need help, if I admit that I need help, then I'm weak. I'm not that strong person. Whereas, in my view, it is quite the opposite. Recognizing your own limitations and saying, hey, I can't do this alone. I can't, how I'm functioning in this world around me doesn't work. I'm, how I'm behaving is impacting how my kid's doing at school. How I'm behaving impacts how my wife is able to function during her job. How she sleeps, how my child sleeps, their appetite, their cravings. It's, we're so preoccupied on being individualistic and
Hmm.
every man is an island,
Hmm.
every person is an island,
Hmm.
that we don't understand that, you know, okay, let's go with this whole island notion. We're in a chain of islands. So what happens on one island is going to have some impact on another,
Hmm.
how far away it
Yes.
is.
Yes, absolutely. And I also think it kind of, at least how I see it as a woman looking at men, the anxiety also feeds into their insecurity. There is a, a level of insecurity with men that I never really noticed before. And I never really thought about because, you know, going back to what I said about societal education, women are taught that you are made for the male gaze and you are to be whatever the man finds pleasing. And that's something I used to do. Like, I wouldn't really talk about myself when I was dating because I just felt like you don't want to hear that. You just want me to support and rally whatever you're doing. And I realized that that was a very, very big, I was wrong on that. And while I dated a lot of assholes and some people who were absolutely abusive, and what I did does it mean that I deserve to be abused? I wasn't myself because, my societal education was you need to do all of this to get a man. And you see it everywhere in books and TV. I mean, Sex in the City was like this huge, huge TV show. Rewatching it now, I'm like, this is all really gross. Like, this is all really gross. You had four women who were talented, accomplished, beautiful, and all they kept thinking about was I need a man, I need a man, I need a man. And they would change and morph and do all of this. And it's like, looking back on it, it's like, I should have just been myself and been like, here, this is what it is. You either like it or you don't. And I feel like with men, their societal teaching was kind of like, you need a hot girl, you need a hot car, you need money, and you need to look good. And that's it. So we're both coming to the table with these false expectations and doing things that kind of bump heads because we're not being ourselves. And you have men who may be into something like sewing. But if they were to say, yeah, I'm really into sewing, they're looked at, you're gay. And you would have women that would say that too. Well, that's really gay. I'm like, it's sewing. That to me, sewing's kind of like a life skill, like cooking.
What I mean, that's something that I dealt with growing up. I was always the smallest one in my family. And so when my grandfather and brother and cousins would go on the farm and take care of either the crops or the livestock, I was always left in the house with grandma. Or, when my other grandpa would go out on the construction site with my other cousins and, build apartments and houses in their small town in Iowa, I was always left at home with grandma. So I learned to sew. I still learned to build things, but I was not big enough to go out and handle a hog or drive a caterpillar or raise a literal roof. So yeah, I mean, I've dealt with that. Like, well, you don't know this. So in my family, I was the only one over the age of 19 that wasn't married. By the time I was 21, there was loads of speculation on both sides of my sexuality. I'm like, guys, like, you're either divorced or you're cheating on your spouse. None of you are prime examples of what a marriage I want to look like. Like, sorry, I don't want to be you. Um, but back to your whole like male gaze thing, men are also conditioned for the male gaze. Like, all of our marketing is all based on the male gaze. Like, if you look at the dudes that they have shilling body wash and
That's
deodorant,
true.
I, I'm sorry, the man doing the Old Spice commercials and the dude doing the Dove men's
Hmm.
body wash, those are traditionally attractive people. Like, those are
Right.
the archetype of this is male beauty. We're also told, hey, get the car, get the job, get the get the lady,
Hmm.
get the house. So yes, women are absolutely pressured to cater to the male gaze, but men are too. It's a completely fucked up cycle. You have to do this in order to be manly,
Hmm.
but doing this to be manly is going to kill you, or it's going to hurt somebody else.
Right.
So your options are, you either end up this bitter person that is, like the most broken person you see walking in public, just head down, taking up as little space as possible, not wanting be seen, not wanting to be noticed. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you get people like Andrew Tate,
Yes.
who, their entire thing is a grift of making men insecure about who they are, their skills, their income, and their health for clicks that he can then turn around and use for human trafficking.
Right.
We're not shown the middle part of you can be masculine, you can be strong, you can build a house, you can go to a blacksmithing forge and make a damn sword, and you can mend your child's stuff,
Right.
or you can cook your partner a three-course meal because you can call up your partner's friends and say, hey, they've been really stressed out lately. Why don't you two go out and have a good time? And don't worry about coming home.
Right.
And I think it's a lot of work. Yeah, I'm gonna say that it's a lot of work to get past that. Uh, Indoctrination. I mean, that's what it is. It's societal indoctrination. It takes a lot of work to get past it and say, you know what, this doesn't fit. This box that society has created is too small
Mm-hmm.
for me. It can't contain every aspect of who I am. Just because it's not made for sustainability.
Right.
It's made for exploitation. It's not made for community. It's not made for productive life.
Right.
I've got people on threads that, because I have make shots at my masculinity or sexuality. Yeah, okay, you're right. I do have long hair because my hairstylist is 45 minutes away. I'm lazy, and she's been cutting my hair for 10 years, and I'm find somebody new. And I can also build you a house. So,
I
yeah,
I think and it feeds into this insecurity. Yesterday on Threads, I decided to highlight men that I felt like were safe spaces for women. It was like Incel Troll Day on the ranch yesterday. And you can, the thing that I don't understand about trolls is that, do you guys really believe all this bullshit you're saying? And do you think we believe it? We aren't afraid of you or fear you or anything. We just kind of go, wow, you really got a lot of time on your hands, son, and maybe you should, find a hobby. But it the reason they're doing it, to go back to what you said, the anger has nowhere to go, and the anxiety has nowhere to go. I'm anxious. If you are, depending where you are in the world and how you were raised and what race you are, if you're a young white male, you could be hearing, you know, all the minorities and the blacks and the illegals are trying to take your jobs, and the women's are are getting education, because I think now what women have more college degrees than men, or women are going to college at a higher clip now than men. When you continue to hear that, I can imagine that that could be fearful, because guess what? I'm looking for a job right now, and when I hear several people go, the job market really kind of sucks, and I've been looking for a job for like months. I've been looking for a job now for 6 months. It's crickets. That's scary. Like I know that feeling, because it's like, oh my God, am I going to be able to find a job? But I've also had therapy. I also have coping mechanisms. So I know how to, yes, this is scary. It's okay to feel scared because it's scary, but you have you have backup, you have things that you can do, and you go on and try to be hopeful. And what I see with incels and trolls, especially male trolls, I don't think they have any hope. I don't think they, it's, I've lost all hope. Everyone is telling me that I'm not going to be able, the women are after my job and the illegals are after my job. And FYI, I don't believe anyone's illegal. I'm using their language. There is no such thing as an illegal person. Um, I have to say, you got to spell stuff out now because people act like they don't get shit and you got to just spell it out. So let me spell it out.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't believe that anyone's illegal. And you may live in a house where your father and even your mother is telling you this or saying it. And so I'm scared. I don't know what to do. My scared turns in my anxiety turns into scared, turns into anger. And now I've decided that I'm going to unleash the anger on all the people that society told me are after me and what I deserve to get as a male. So I'm going to unleash it on women. I'm going to unleash it on Black people. I'm going to unleash it on other marginalized groups. I'm going to unleash it on undocumented people. And we're all looking at them like, do you need a Snickers? Are you hangry? Like it, and I'm like, dude, I mean, because I kind of want to go, what happens when you don't get the thing you thought you were going to get? So when you say
Right.
vile shit, and I clap back to trolls because I like doing it. It's fun. Like when someone claps back, then what? Like we're sitting there like, bruh, you're calling people ugly and you don't even have your fucking picture on here. Are you okay? Like,
Yeah. And I think honestly, as frustrating and as angering as those people are, I find myself pitying
same,
more than anything.
same. Me too.
Because most of them, they're reciting the whole like body value. One of the newer ones is like the 3% man or something like that. I try to keep up with this stuff just because of our
Mm-hmm.
yeah, uh, because I'm not letting YouTube get a hold of him. Uh, but at the same time, like they've been into this pseudoscience nonsense that has been disproven over and over and over again. And they're not able to accept it because it's taking away their one comfort.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking away their weighted blanket. I'm not the problem. I'm not the common denominator in every failed relationship. It's everybody else. And the first step to getting to a good mental health place is saying, I'm not okay.
Mm-hmm.
I need help. I need somebody to teach me tools to manage what I'm feeling. And I need tools to not only teach me how to survive, but also how to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Words to this anxiety, so I'm not how to, handle my frustration in a productive way. I mean, one of my biggest struggles that I have with society, and I saw it the other day when somebody was talking about Inside Out 2.
Mm.
Uh, they were talking about the added emotions. I've never seen Inside Out 1. I've heard fantastic things about it.
It's really good.
It's just not been a movie that I'm like, oh yeah, let's
Yeah,
go see.
right.
Our child's a little bit older. But when they were talking about it, they were talking about the new emotions that were being added and the way they talked about them. Like, negative emotions. No, they're not. They're emotions.
There,
The emotion itself does not have a moral
mm-hmm,
quantification.
right,
An emotion just is. A thought
exactly.
just is. It's what you do with it. It's going to decide whether it's productive or destructive.
Mm-hmm,
You know, can you turn your anxiety into something that makes it introspective, that you can then channel into something else and change that emotion's form to make it something that brings you life or brings other people life? Or are you going to sit there and swallow it and stuff it down until you do something horrendous? Those are really the two options. But so long as we talk about emotions being positive or negative, we're not going to get anywhere, because we're assigning a moral value to it.
mm-hmm,
There's nothing wrong with me being angry.
yes,
What Me being angry, in my anger, destroying things around the house, that's wrong.
right,
Me sitting in that anger and saying, why does this upset me? Why does this make me angry? And getting to the root of why this upsets me. Like what we were talking about before with the, like, the not all men, and,
mm-hmm,
sometimes you get stung, and the reaction is to get angry. The response is to say, okay, I'm angry. Why am
mm-hmm,
I angry? It's that next step beyond the, okay, I'm angry, I'm pissed off. Okay, great. I'm glad that you're feeling something. Why are you pissed off?
mm-hmm,
Like, what about this situation has you feeling this way that you don't know how to express? Like, I've tried things, like I've tried journaling, I've tried exercise and things like that, but those don't work for everybody. Journaling doesn't work for me.
right,
I just end up getting lost in staring into a blank page or doodling. Nothing productive comes of it. Exercise I can't really do because I've got a hodgepodge thing together with a hardware store. And surgeon said no
exercise,
exercise,
right,
no high impact exercise. So, but there are still things that I can do, whether it's drawing, whether it's reading, meditating, or even sometimes just taking 30 minutes and saying, okay, you know what, I need some time.
mm-hmm,
I'm going to go in my office, I'm going to play video games for 30 minutes to an hour. I might jump on chat with some of my friends in Discord, or I'm going to go lay down for 30 minutes and watch something on my iPad in bed with the lights off. I'm just going to take some time, cool down, gather myself, and then we can come back and we can talk about this. It's that. But I think that so many of us are taught that whole, like, you have to push, 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 push,
mm-hmm,
push, push, is forward. But more than pushing, you have to breathe.
right,
It's not something that we're taught.
to do. You're not,
We're not taught to do that as men. We're taught, okay, if somebody does something, you immediately have to respond. You have to react in such a way. No, you don't. You absolutely don't. And choosing not to do that requires more strength,
yes,
more self-restraint than just jumping into it because and I think that, so society just has beat into us for so long that we have to be that lone gunman. The idea of being that, okay, no, we need to sit back, we need to pause, we need to take in all the information, and then we need to figure out the best course of action
mm-hmm,
following that. It's that whole difference of information versus knowledge versus wisdom.
mm-hmm,
There's, your reaction is information. That's it. You have that base information. Knowledge is, okay, I'm taking 2 steps back. I'm going to sit and I'm going to look and I'm going to evaluate the situation. is what I want to do appropriate.
Right.
Wisdom is taking all of that and saying, what I want to do is not appropriate. It's not productive. It's destructive. I'm going to choose this other. It is productive. It's not destructive. It will either reconcile or strengthen this relationship that I'm in with this person. You know, it's a struggle. It's even admittedly for me, I'm in my 40s and I moved to this town my wife and I lived before we were married. And I'm 45 minutes away from where I had an established community. I didn't have a whole lot of close friends, but I had friends that I would go with regularly and see regularly. Having moved, like I don't. Making friends as a man
I was just about to say,
is,
I, I was just
is
about to
hard.
say that.
It's a difficult. It's and doing it in person, it makes it even more challenging. I My suspicion, and this is 100% speculation and not based on anything. My suspicion is that it would probably be much easier for me to make friends in my area if I were to be able to go to someplace like a gym or
Right.
something like that and participate in those activities that are traditionally masculine.
Eh,
And I'm also in an area that's incredibly conservative and incredibly religious.
mm, mm,
So,
that right. So to kind of, because you made some like really great points. That's why I was like, I'm just gonna sit there and listen. But one thing you said made me think of, I think when you were talking about Andrew Tate and how I feel, and it kind of goes back to men kind of don't have the community that they need to really kind of change. And this is what I mean. You have a lot of people like Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit, Kevin Samuels, may he, rest in hell. And I speak ill of the dead. And this is why I speak ill of the dead. God knows my heart. Now, I'm a Christian, you know that. God knows my heart. And God knows that I didn't give two fucks about Kevin Samuels or anything that he had to say. Okay? God knows that. So I'm not going to fake it with y'all because the whole point is to get to heaven. And if God already know the kid don't give a fuck about Kevin Samuels, then y'all gonna know I don't give a fuck about him either because God already know. So now, would I ever speak ill of him in front of his family? No. But I don't, that man's in hell, and that's where he should be. And that's all I got to say on it. And if you got a problem with it, you could go straight to hell with him. But anyway, that I, this is a neurodivergent podcast. I go on tangents. Anyway, to get back to my original thought, you have because you guys were taught the individualistic, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You have to do everything and look a certain way and all of that. The people who thrive in your community are people who believe, they may not even really believe it, but they champion that and talk about that. And the people like you are few and far between, where the people who are championing the toxic masculinity are the ones that's getting the community. And then you have men like you who you're building a community, but it's rough going because you have all these other people on this side going, nah, this you're supposed to be a toxic man is what you're supposed to be. And when you said it's hard to change, it is absolutely hard to change because it's so comforting. It's comforting to know the things that you know, even if the things that you know don't serve you. it is harder to change because I don't know what that change is going to bring. It's the unknown, and I don't know what's going to happen. What if that doesn't work out either? Like, I know that this isn't serving me, but I know it. So I don't want to change
Hmm.
because I don't know what the change is going to serve me. I mean, as a woman, I had that when I started to really kind of unpack a lot of things that I felt like it's not serving me anymore. But the difference between men and women is I feel like I had a lot more people who were like, that's not serving you. And this is why. And so I feel like it was a little bit easier or more accepted for me to go, you know what, this isn't serving me. Let me go try something else. Is the fear of the unknown still there? Absolutely. I am stepping out on faith at this point because I don't really got nothing else to do. And it's scary, but it's like, okay, I'm going to do it. But I feel like with men, you don't have that. You don't have a lot of people going, you know what, this isn't really serving you. You have more people going, yeah, continue to do that. You have more people using the pseudoscience and all of that bullshit to lure more people in for the grift because they're all doing it for money. Andrew Tate
Yeah.
gives two shits about you. He just wants your money. All those other people, wellness people, the liver king, he he don't give two shits about you either. He just wants your money. Like all of these people just want your fucking money. And you are so stuck in I don't want to change that you would just fall for the okie doke because changing
Well,
doesn't cost money. Well, it costs a little
but
bit of money. Not,
I mean, but for a lot of men, for a lot of us, it comes at a higher cost than money because we have that pseudo community within,
mm-hmm,
and there's that pseudo community, you know, whether it's online, 4chan, 8chan, shitter, wherever the hell it is, you know, there is that pseudo community, that parasocial community within that group. And if you change, you lose that small
mm-hmm,
community. So men are out here and you know we're seeking things. We want that community just as much as women do. But the way that we're able to express that is so limited based on this framework that society has created that the cost of losing pseudo community and those parasocial relationships is far more expensive than the $20 a month or whatever your team charges for his podcast subscription or whatever the wellness fee is. Or, you know, it's the cost is there, but it's not a hard cost.
mm,
The soft cost of it is it's frightening to men.
mm-hmm,
It's frightening to a lot of men. You know, we're we're told and we're taught that if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, this isn't really good for you. You shouldn't be doing this," we're told to be suspect of it because then that person wants something from us and they're going to exploit what we're giving up for their own benefit rather than
mm,
it being somebody coming in and saying, "Hey, you're killing yourself slowly, but you're killing yourself." And it's sad. It really is very, very sad. We're, we're in this place and where we're told that you can't be strong and be present to you.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be gentle with your child, still be strong. You can't be tough and your wife's dress, or sew your kids back together, or put Legos together as a family, or see a kids movie. You listen to how a lot of guys talk about spending time with their child. They're like, I'm going to go babysit. No, you're not. It's your fucking kid. You don't babysit your kid. You spend time with your child. You raise your child. You parent your child. The babysitter is who you pay so you and your partner can go out and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fucking job. It's a responsibility.
Right.
So I think that to understand the significance of that soft cost, because I think that it's even lost on us. I know that I lose sight of it all the time online, dealing with the incels and all these people that are just like, so spew some of the most wretched, I lose sight of it. Most of that it's coming from a place of fear. It's coming from a place of hurt. It's coming from a place of insecurity that they're not ready to face. You know, to use like just use a Star Wars reference because last night for one this afternoon. It's like that scene when where Yoda gets Luke to go into that cave, and he's like, "You're going to face your fear." Well, that's the invitation of what community is, and what being yourself and who you actually are is. But it requires you giving up that facade of, I know what the fuck I'm doing, because none of us do.
Mm-hmm.
How many times are we like, all right, yes, I'm an adult, but I'm going to walk into a room and I'm going to look for the most adult possible
Right.
and follow their lead.
Right.
Sure as shit is not me.
Yes. I
So, and I think that a lot of these grifters, they just present themselves as saying, hey, I've got all this together. Somebody like Tate, who, I've got a Bugatti, I've got a $500,000 car, I've got a $1.4 million car. It's something tangible that we're told is a sign of masculinity, that we're told is a sign of success. And it's like, well, if we do what he says to do, we're going to get
mm-hmm.
we're going to get that collection of cars worth $5 million or whatever his car collection is. People, no, you're not, because you're not a Hoochie. You don't have a history of anti-violence. You don't have a built-in following that
Mm-hmm.
you can then grift off of for this
Mm-hmm.
side hustle that became your main hustle.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's the same with the guys that walk around saying they're alpha males. Well, who is the most alpha in the alpha male? Because there can only be one alpha male.
Right. And there's
You can't.
99,000 of you talking about you're an alpha male, but there can only be one. So which one of y'all motherfuckers is gonna fight for the privilege of being the alpha male?
Yeah, I mean, are we going to do some kind of like poll, or so let you guys decide who is the most alpha out there? I mean, on one level, I would find that incredible. But on another level,
I would pay for that.
it's utterly sad to think that these men have been so duped by this desire for their version of masculinity to be legitimized, that they buy into this.
Mm-hmm.
And even on top of it just being, disproven pseudoscience, uh, but, it's their desperation nothing good comes from this.
So how do we, I mean, so how do we fix it? I feel like I feel like it's, you know how something gets really, really fucked up and it's like fucked up, fucked up, fucked up, fucked up, and then it starts like unspooling itself. It gets less fucked up. I feel like that's where we are with men and the loneliness thing and the toxic masculinity. I think it's all about to come to a head, and it's in the beginning stages of unfucking itself up because you now have a group of men who are very present parents and they don't look at their child as a chore or babysitting. They're parenting. You have, you now have a crop of men parenting their sons differently. Yes, you can cry. It's okay to cry. It's okay to show emotion. You have, you have women who have now go, well, I'm not going to do all this for a man. I'm just going to do my thing. You know, we are now changing our view of what type of man we want. So I think like before we were taught, yeah, you want the guy with the car and the conventionally attractive and the muscles and all that. And I've never been a woman for big muscly men. Never. I don't find that attractive. I've never found it attractive. I'm more of a dad bod type girl. Um and as we kind of changed and go, you know what? we're not we don't really want that. We want men that we can have a conversation with. We want men that's going to listen. And as we go through therapy for our things, and trauma informed therapy, I mean, 1 in 4 women have been sexually assaulted. I'm a, I've been sexually assaulted more than once. So as we go and unpack that, you also have this element of, well, I also want a man that has the emotional intelligence to understand my trauma and make space for it. And I think as we start to ask for those things, of course you're going to get the pushback first. And I feel like that's where we are. We're still in the middle. We're towards the end of the pushback, but I'm starting to see a little bit of, you know what, they're right. Because a lot of the men that I follow on threads, they're not they I don't know y'all. So I'm going by what y'all post on threads. Just like y'all don't really know me, even though what you see on threads is me, but you don't know that. And that's okay because it's all social media. But a lot of the men that I follow, they are doing that. I'm going to be a safe space. They are calling out the toxic masculinity. They are unlearning their own toxic masculinity. And I feel like and that kind of gives me a little bit of hope. Like, okay, maybe this will work out. Like I've gotten to the point I don't even want to date anymore. I don't want to date because every single man that I've ever dated, I've disclosed my assault. And once I disclose that, it's almost like we're going to traumatize her more. Like she's nothing. It's almost like they feel like she's a little broken and she's a little used, so I don't really care. And no one wants to feel that way. And I've just gotten to the point I've never met someone that didn't treat me like that. Yes, part of it was me, and I know I'm probably going to get a lot of pushback, like, no, but it is, and I'll explain like in a later episode because it's the explanation, but it's it's the fear of I may not ever find that person, and I'm okay with being by myself. So I don't even want to date anymore, and I'm okay with it because I don't want to go out and find the same of what I had before.
Yeah, and I think that that is why we're seeing so much toxic masculinity, patriarchy stuff is because men are seeing that women like you are choosing to not date. Their question is why, and then when they get the answer, they're like, "Well, that's not a skill I know how to do. That's nothing I was ever taught. This is completely foreign to me. I'm not equipped to do this. I can't do this." So then they get into that whole anxiety, fear, depression aspect, and then they're like, "I'm not good enough. I need help." Click grifter, alpha male, 3% male. It is, rather than saying, "Hey, the things that women want are not things that I was taught. So I'm going to believe a woman when she says that this is what she wants. And I'm going to learn the skills that women have said that they find desirable." It's really that simple. And we as men, we are, because we have to be the ones that are right because we're the leaders.
Hmm.
Well, just because you're the leader doesn't make you the boss.
Right.
There's a difference between being a leader and being a boss. And, a leader earns the respect of the people that they lead, and the leader will put themselves in harm's way
Hmm.
before anybody else. And a boss will be like, "Have fun. See you
Right.
later. I'm gonna go pop my golden parachute and walk away."
Right.
And I think there's a whole slew of things that it's rooted in it, and honestly, most of the first people that colonized this country were Puritans, kicked out of Europe for being fanatics. I think that we just have so much of this baggage that prevents men from being taught these soft skills, as
Mm.
they're not soft at all. They're necessary. They're necessary. Things were very different when you had to hunt for food, or when you had to dig a well by hand, or whatever. We live in a society with a grocery store. I don't even have to go in the grocery store. Pull up my phone and I do my grocery order online.
Right.
Pull up and they put the groceries in my car, and I say thank you and drive away. And you so all these things, this like cowboy mentality that we're taught, that may have had a function in the 1700s, 1800s, whatever, destructive still, but they have a function for society. Those aren't things that work anywhere. If I wanted to have a firearm, it would strictly be for going to a shooting range and
Mm.
entertainment. There's no daily life necessity for me to have
Right.
safe. The idea of needing a firearm for here is really foreign to this area, and there are definitely communities where it is. Me, and I've been one before. Still, those are few and far between, and I think that we just, as men, collectively, we need to get over it. We need to get past it, and we need to realize that it's a tradition. Traditions don't need to be upheld when they're not productive. And when the traditions are upheld and they're not productive, it's nothing more than peer pressure from dead people.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
that's literally all it is. Like when people make comments and they're like, "Well, the founding fathers, I don't care. They're dead."
Man, they're
Um,
all
they're
dead. Most of them owned other people at the time. Didn't want certain groups of people to vote. Didn't want certain groups of people to even be considered human beings. I don't give a fuck about what they
I mean,
think.
mean, and even to the point of like, I was talking with my mom. He said something about what my dad would think, and I was like, I understand that you guys were married and that you have not maybe a handful of dates in the 23 years since he's passed, but what dad would have said in this situation is irrelevant because that's
Right.
not 23 years ago may have said if he were still alive. There's 23 years of changes that would have happened.
Right.
So you can say what he would have said in 2001. Listen to that, but don't tell me what he would have said in 2000.
It could have been different.
There, there's a lot of maturing that happens and a lot of change that happens in there, whether it's good or bad. But there's a lot of it. And long story short, I think that men just need to struggle and with reconciling
Yes, I agree.
their. I think getting to the point where you're saying, hey, you know what? I want to hang out and we don't need to watch a sports game. We don't need to watch it. We don't need to just go to a movie. We can go get drinks and just hang out and shoot the shit. We can let's go grab dinner at this nice restaurant that's new. Hey, there's this exhibit at something or other, finding these ways to connect socially. I feel like women are encouraged to do in
Hmm.
good ways and in bad
Yes.
ways. I know that when I was growing up, it was a very common thing for the young girls that I went to school with and young women that I went to school with. They would go shopping together.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We still do that.
And,
We still do that. We still go shopping together.
my wife is very much like me, and like leave the house out of necessity.
Look,
We are not in an area where we are surrounded by people like us.
and it and if I was in that predicament, well, I would probably do a lot of things by myself. I do a lot of things by myself. I actually like my own company, but
Hmm.
I also like shopping with other people, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. We've kind of been encouraged to do things that necessitate us talking and having a conversation, whereas men were kind of brought up to do things with each other that doesn't, you know, have that component. Go to a sporting event. You can't have a conversation at a sporting event. You got to watch the game. Watching the game on TV, same thing. It's not. Whereas shopping, okay, we're talking while we're walking to the store. It it doesn't. You don't have that, and I think that is what is needed for men to kind of get on the trajectory of dismantling toxic masculinity. We're at.
And I think,
Uh-huh. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, and I think that there are definitely pockets of that happening within some aspects of traditionally masculine pastimes or
Hmm.
what are considered traditionally masculine pastimes. It's very few and far between, and most importantly, it's incredibly unethical.
Yes, it is. So we're coming towards the end, and I like to do like when we have heavy topics like this, I like to end it on a light note. So, um, and I had my question, and now I lost it. I know what it was. So it's summer.
Okay.
It's summer, and one
Yes.
of our mutuals talked about it's hoochie short summer.
Uh-huh.
Please, what is your feeling on hoochie shorts for men? I'm personally a fan. I think we should see more. But give me your thoughts.
So my entire life, I've always shied away from shorts.
Okay.
Always. And I live in Kansas City. And so our summers here are incredibly humid. I mean, I think the other day it was like 80 something, 89 degrees and like 57% humidity. Like you walk out and it's a damn sauna. But since I've been diagnosed with celiac disease, one of the symptoms that I get with the celiac gluten exposure is all over my body.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I was always very self-conscious about because it presented most in my legs.
Mm-hmm.
So since we started getting that resolved, I'm all about the shorts. And as far as the hoochie shorts go, whatever, I don't. I'm not one of those people that's like, you can't do this, you shouldn't do this. Like, if you're comfortable wearing it, roll it. I do not care. I'm personally not going to wear the like 3-inch shorts, and I look real goofy in the 4-inch or 5-inch inseam, but I'm comfortable with the 7-inch inseam. And, I feel like I make up not going for the short shorts
Yeah.
with my hoochie shirts,
Yes, because
or as my wife calls them, my pirate shirts.
yes, so what's our mutual's name? Sia? He's the one,
Yeah,
he's the one who started the hoochie shorts. And you were the one who was like, well, what about a hoochie shirt? So you're down with the hoochie shirt. And
yeah. I mean, it started for me out of necessity because I'm in the process of getting this tattoo sleeve, and like I'm not able to put sunscreen on this arm at all summer because every time that it finally heals, I go in for another session.
right.
So, so for me, it was a thing of necessity. Like, okay, I need to find something that comes down farther than a t-shirt comes down to protect my tattoo. And then I found these linen shirts that are Henleys, and I love Henleys, period. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna do this. And at first, my wife hated it. She hated the very idea of it. She was like, you are going to look like a damn fool wearing this. And then we were invited to a Polynesian festival for the area and school district where she works. One of her students invited us to that. And so I wore this kind of Henley that way. And she was like,
That
I
looks
kind of
not
like
bad.
this.
Yeah.
It doesn't look bad. And then last week we went to a game. Our nephew's is playing t-ball as a 5-year-old, which is hilarious. But I wore my deep linen Henley and came home and we're sitting on the couch watching something on TV. And I thought she was just scrolling through TikTok. No, she put on the intro music for Pirates of the Caribbean. And she was just over there looking at me like, hi, how are you? And I looked over and I was like, what the hell are you doing? She was like, I'm just looking at you looking like a pirate and, having thoughts. And I was like, and she's like, I've become a fan of this look. I like it.
So
You need me?
your house is hoochie shirt summer then.
Yeah, yeah, definitely hoochie shirt summer.
Okay, okay.
So
Ryan, it's been great talking to you. Thank you
you
so
too.
much for joining me. Everyone, I hope,
Thank you.
yay! Guys, this has been another episode of I Got a Lot of Things to Say. I'm Kia Dotson, and I'll see you next time.
See ya.
Wait.